He's written for Playboy, Sports Illustrated, Medium, BBN Times, and his book, Harlem to Hollywood, is out now on Amazon worldwide. Welcome to Midlife, Ashley Jude Collie.
Hey, Lisa, you look fab as always.
Thank you. You're so kind. I'm so excited to talk to you. Every time we talk, like I just like buzz with ideas. You are such a fascinating human. So thank you for saying yes to being on the podcast.
You're welcome. I look forward to it. You had some great questions, so I look forward to seeing if I can contribute to any of your listeners or, give them any ideas like people have given me ideas.
I have no doubt. Okay, so I want to start with you have written for some of the biggest names in media: Playboy, Sports Illustrated, Huffington Post. And we're fellow writers. We met at an event where we were talking about writing. So I would love to hear a bit more about your origin story. So take us back. What was the moment that you really knew words were going to be your career?
Well, I've been asked this before and thought about it, and also when I've asked other people, because I've interviewed a lot of big celebrities. But
Yes,
I
you
always wrote.
have. We're going to get into that.
Yeah, I've always written. I literally didn't think that writing was anything different or anything special. I remember being in Wales, and I went to a school where there was a nun, Sister Michael Joseph, who was a headmistress, and she would just come up to me because she knew my parents and my grandfather was the caretaker of the school. Anyway, she'd come up and say, "Young Ashley, Master Ashley, we need something written tomorrow on Canada," which is a place where we emigrated to. And
Okay.
I would just come up I would just come up with stuff, be it history or geography, and I just thought it was just something I did. I didn't realize it
Yeah.
was actually a skill, you know? Um, well, I was actually planning to be an architect. My dad was a involved in math and accounting and business, and I was pretty good at art. And I thought that I would become combine the art and the visual and with the analytical and become an architect. But we emigrated to Canada, and I found that my art didn't express. I had a lot of difficulty adjusting to North America. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, even though we all spoke English.
Yeah.
Um,
What
uh,
specifically? I'd love to hear because I'm a third culture kid. I've lived overseas, so like I'm curious what specifically.
yeah, I actually went to a private school, so I was brought up by a very. I was brought up. My parents were very Catholic, but not certainly not Bible. But I went to Catholic schools. I had brothers around me, and I sort of bought into the whole system. I don't buy
Mm,
into it now, but I bought into it, and it was such a different sort of change of pace. The people spoke English but spoke differently. They dressed differently. I was used to wearing uniforms, and I remember coming running home to my mother as a young teen, going, "Mom, you got to buy me blue jeans and a lumberjack shirt to fit in." I know.
right.
So it had to do with fitting in, which perhaps you might
Yes.
have also
I
dealt with
so
yourself.
relate to that.
I
Yeah.
actually just a quick aside, I interviewed Naomi Watts for a cover story for a magazine, and in the interview, her accent changed 3 times. She heard she started off speaking with a sort of an Australian accent, which people think she is, but then she heard my accent, and she switched without possibly being conscious about it into a Welsh accent, and I
Wow.
found out I realized her mother was actually Welsh, and she
Okay.
actually speaks Welsh, and she actually was grew up in Wales because her mother moved them to Wales where her family was. So she went to Welsh, and then when we got on to her being Australia, so her accent went to Australian. And then by the end of the conversation, because she was living in New York, her accent changed to an American accent. So she said to me, it had to do no possibly why she became an actor was acting aloud was a way that she could adapt to things. And I think
What?
so. I had a problem adapting to a change of pace, a change of many things, and then getting back to why writing. I found my writing could express what I was going through more than my art. So it became a
Mm,
natural sort of thing. And then I mean, I'd send out these poems out to magazines. I go, gee, they love the poems, but nothing's happening with them. I should see if I can find a craft or a technical aspect to writing. And I went to journalism school. I actually
okay.
have a couple of journalism degrees, and that's where I started out as a journalist. Learning
So
how,
this
by the
is
way, and
amazing.
yeah,
You're giving me some things that really, like, I feel very dialed. Okay, so I feel very dialed in, and I'm so appreciative of what you said. So Stedman is Welsh. That's a Welsh last name. I am not connected at all to my Welsh roots. I think I told you my father is very, like, he went back and went to cemeteries and, like, studied. He and his sister are very into
yeah,
their genealogy, their Welsh genealogy. So I appreciate that. But I remember, so speaking of the accent thing that you just shared about Naomi Watts, I was 3 years old when we moved to Sydney, Australia, and I was
okay,
5 years old when we moved back to Bozeman, Montana, and I still remember, and it was a pain point for a very long time, I still remember being at a kid's birthday party down the street from my house in my neighborhood, and everyone was playing telephone with these little cups, but, like, there was candy in the cups, and so they're like, "Lisa, come play telephone with us," and what I said was, "But I haven't finished my lollies." And
all right,
everyone started laughing, and the mom of the party was on the phone, and she was like, "Oh, we've got a regular Australian in here," and it was such a it at that age, it felt very shameful. I felt like I was being othered, and it really took a long time for me to embrace that othered wasn't bad, right? Like, because I
right,
had grown up in
good
another
point.
culture, and then I went to the Middle East, and so then I came back again, and it was like all these feelings of being different, to your point, can make us feel so separate, but also to your point, I think I turned to writing for the same reason because I could better express what I was
Mhm.
experiencing
Yep.
almost in secret because I was writing it down rather than saying it out loud.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other I went to journalism school, and this was just sheer luck. I interviewed when I was still in journalism school. I got so lucky. I interviewed a bunch of big music people, a band called Rush, who just performed in LA. They've been around for 50 years. I
Yeah.
interviewed them, and we were reading Ayn Rand and whatever. And then I I interviewed Bruce Springsteen for Maclean's magazine, which was like it's still around, but it used to be a weekly news magazine. It was like how Time was a weekly news magazine, but it was
Okay.
Canada's weekly. It's called Maclean's. And I did a story on Bruce Springsteen. I was a kid, the only journalist in Canada to interview Bruce Springsteen because he wasn't doing interviews and stuff. But somehow people knew me and blah blah blah, and I BS'd and whatever. Um, and just getting and then I interviewed Paul McCartney. I sat on the stage, and okay, so he comes on. He's doing Wings Across America. So guess what instrument he came on and did the sound check for? Because
What?
people see him as a bass player or piano player. He came on and he did the sound check playing drums.
Oh
And
my god.
uh, I sat on this little chair watching Paul McCartney do the sound check on the drums on the stage because I had been hired by the concert promoters to hang out all day and just watch how they actually set up for the
Yeah.
concert, type thing. Anyway, so the point is about the writing was that I got very fortunate with interviewing
Yeah.
huge people, and that just gave me what you were just saying, feedback, and made me feel not so much as an outsider again, and
Yes.
writing was allowing me to do that, especially being an interviewer because you get to meet like people of
Yes,
some renown
exactly.
and recognition. So it brought me out and made me, as I just said, and I'd never really thought about it like that, not feeling like an other anymore. So yeah, that's where
Yes.
the writing goes back to.
That's amazing. And I I love interviewing too. And like my I'm just gonna name drop for a second. I once interviewed Cher
Hmm.
because I
Cher
was working at
Cher Sarkisian.
I
Armenian
was working
background,
at Mattel at the time, and they had just come out with the Cher Barbie, so I interviewed her and Bob Mackie together, and I was probably all of 27 and could not believe my good fortune, didn't realize that would be a one-off, but it was such an incredible experience because to your point, like, when you're interviewing someone, there's such a beautiful connection that typically happens, not always, but when it does, it's such like a just a meeting of human to human, and that's one of my favorite things about being a writer is those moments of human to human. Um, so
which is
now
kind of
I gotta
like when
ask,
we met.
what Yeah,
Yeah, just kind of like
exactly,
we met, human to
exactly.
yeah.
I love
Mm.
those moments. So,
Now you're gonna
what
ask,
then drew you out to Hollywood? And I'm curious because Hollywood has so many connotations. So, what did you think it was going to be versus what it actually turned out to be?
I had, uh, written a script that I sold to a guy who it became a friend of mine, and I wrote his book, and this was his Sonny Grosso,
Yes.
his book. Yeah. Anyway, I met him in Toronto. He was filming there, so I got involved in starting getting involved in Hollywood through Sonny Grosso. But there was a an actor friend, Canadian actor friend, who uh, had a lady friend, Rebecca, who had been Miss Nebraska in beauty pageant. She was gorgeous, Rebecca, and she lived in New York. And anyway, I became friends with Rebecca and Sean, and they came out to LA. I was living in Toronto. They came out to LA, although I was doing some work in New York. That's why how I sort of met them. Um, and they stayed at the Oakwood Apartments, and they said, "Hey, we're here during pilot season. Come stay with us. Come hang out." And it was great, because the Oakwood Apartments,
Fun.
they're called something else. They're on Barham Boulevard, just
Yes,
overlooking the
I know
Warner Brothers. I
exactly
mean,
what you're talking about. Yeah, they have
can you
changed their
imagine?
name.
Yeah, and can you imagine? You're right by the Warner. Anyway, so what really did it for me was I had been to the Caribbean several times, just on holiday, and although some of it ended up being work. And I arrived at LAX. Sean was going to pick me up in his Jeep, open air Jeep with Roy Orbison blasting, and I saw palm trees and the sun, and I went, "Okay, I like this place." I swear,
Saving.
I'm never leaving. That's exactly it. I had to go back east and do some things, and then I came back here. Um, I'm never leaving. So I came with the intention of, you know, um, getting involved writing in Hollywood. I actually wrote a script, which is still a beautiful script. It was called Hotel California, but it's sort of a metaphorical script that it could actually be done now as an independent movie. And it got read by Gary Goldstein, who was the guy, one of the producers on Pretty Woman. And
Wow.
he actually said, Ashley, I love your craft and the way you wrote, but you know the types of movies I'm doing now. I can't do anything with it. I'm doing big budget movies. And I went, okay, thank you. I get it. I said, but I had to write this script. So anyway, uh, as I found out, Hollywood is, everyone comes here with big dreams and it's not easy. But as long as
Yeah.
you keep the dream going and you
Yes.
somehow finance yourself, I know so many actors, I know directors, I know a lot of people. Not easy. And I've known people who've left, many people
Yeah.
who've just gone back to wherever they came from, you know. So yeah, but there is something about LA. Now, it could be I live in an area called Los Feliz, which is by
One
Griffith
of the
Park, and
best
it's
neighborhoods.
uh, but there's so much history, Hollywood history around here,
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes, there is.
The studios on Talmadge is where Charlie Chaplin used to, and Mary Pickford would work down there. The Cecil B. DeMille, I think, what's her name? Brad Pitt's former lady lives in Cecil B. DeMille's
Oh, yes,
castle.
Angelina Jolie. Yeah.
Angelina Jolie. There are Walt Disney offices and stuff all over LA. Rebel Without a Cause was literally I can walk up the street to the observatory. And Rebel
Yeah.
Without a Cause, some of the best scenes were filmed at the observatory. La La Land, the more recent, was filmed up in Griffith Park. So um, getting back to when I saw palm trees and blue sky, and as you said, like that song, you could check out anytime you like, but you can never
Yeah.
leave.
You can
It's
never
tough.
leave.
It's
Oh, I
tough.
love it.
Even
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
anyway, that's why.
yeah, and I
Uh,
do believe, because I think for my sister's 40th birthday, we did a death to her youth party, so we did something called the Dearly Departed tour that took us to all the
wow.
famous murders around LA, and I think the Black
Yeah.
Dahlia murder happened in Los Feliz, or at least in Silver Lake, which is where
No,
I used to live.
yeah, wasn't it? Yeah,
Okay,
it wasn't in Los Feliz. No, but one
so
of one of the Tate LaBianca murders. The LaBianca murders happened in Los
yes,
Feliz. I know the
yes,
house. I know the house.
yes, it
Yeah.
did, yeah. Okay, so you have literally sat across from, and I'm gonna drop some somewhat controversial names, for some. You've sat across from the
Hmm.
likes of Jeff Bezos, Robert Kennedy Jr., Gene Simmons, who I saw
Yep.
hiking one time.
Yep.
So with all these kinds of and you've mentioned Springsteen. So with all of these conversations, just kind of reflecting back, what's the one thing that maybe surprised you, about how celebrities actually operate behind the curtain?
Well, it could happen to be with that I have a still a, even though I've lived here most of my life, a bit of a an accent still, and I present myself well. I have never ever had a celebrity, and some of these celebrities, people go, "Oh, they're such a jerk," or "They're such a that." Listen, they could well be that way. They could well be
Yeah.
at times, but they've no one has ever done that to me. Um, Gene Simmons almost tried it. He, I s- quick story. I spoke to, and I think I charmed him. I spoke to him. He called me out of the blue because I spoke to his publicist, and he says, comes in the phone. He goes, "Ashley." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "That's a girl's name, isn't it?" That's what he said to me. That's a girl's name. So I figure he's trying to pull a trip on me, right off the bat, a little game, one-upmanship. I said, "Well, not where I'm from, and it's my father's name, and it was his uncle's name, and blah 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 blah." And he goes, "Oh, okay, 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 oh, okay, okay." And he says, "Okay, come up to my house." Oh no, he didn't say my house. He said, "Come to Bob Cohen." I kid you not, Bob Cohen's house in Beverly Hills. And I'm going, "Okay, I'll see you at Bob Cohen's house." He gave me the address. I drive up to Beverly Hills, and the place is under construction, and I'm at the gate, and this maid answers. I said, "I'm supposed to, is this Bob Cohen's house?" Blah, 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 blah. She doesn't quite know. I said, "Gene Simmons? Este Gene Simmons?" And then I look across, and there's a porch or a balcony. He's in his house coat on the balcony waving at me saying, "Come on in," type thing. So I go meet Gene Simmons at Bob Cohen's house, and I'm going, "This is weird because there's a Kiss office in Bob Cohen's house, with a Kiss coffin and Kiss paraphernalia." I'm going, "Okay, I'll just go with it, whatever." We ended up having the guy who tried to play a game on me, ended up having a 2.5 hour intellectual conversation, you know. He passed me his wallet with his pictures of his kids in it, who are now grown up and adults
Wow.
and whatever. And he said, "You can," as I said, "I write for Playboy." He said, "Well, you can write for my magazine." Luckily, I didn't, but he probably wouldn't have paid me. But it was a story about business, and it was actually, and I found out his mother was a Holocaust survivor. And here's one thing I learned, and this is what I've tried. Getting back to your point, I've always tried to
Yeah.
do my research and come up with something that you make them feel that you respect their humanity or you respect their art. Make it that I'm not really here to dig up any dirt. I don't really care, to be
Yeah.
honest, about that dirt that somebody else talk about. But you know, and find out that he's for all his bravado and everything, and all his sexual conquest. He's a big mama's boy. That's it. He's a Jewish mama's boy. You know, Gene Simmons, Chaim Witz, or Weitz, his real name is. How about that? What a story, huh?
Well, But not only that, he's also a really savvy businessman. Like, the reason that
He
he's,
is.
had the longevity and wealth that
Yeah,
he's had isn't just from the music, it's all the licensing and the other savviness that I think really he spearheaded. So, say what you will
yeah.
about a band, but the
Marketing.
man marketing, just like
Yeah,
George Lucas
yeah,
keeping,
yeah.
rights to the toys for Star Wars. Like, some people see things ahead of time. Yeah. Okay. So
He was a very mediocre businessman, but a very sorry, musician, but a very sharp business guy. So
right, right.
um, Springsteen was totally the one of the best interviews. I was still in journalism school when I interviewed
That's
Springsteen. The only
amazing.
I know. Here, go one quick, so I won't go. I come in and I'm supposed to have 10 minutes with him after his concert in the bowels of Maple Leaf Gardens, which was the ice hockey arena. So there's me, you know, with Bruce Springsteen, who's just returning tour across the world or whatever. And first thing he says to me is, "Would you like a soda?" And I'm going, uh, I thought soda is like, gin and soda, vodka and soda, that sort of soda. And I'm going, to myself, why do I want just soda? I go, no, it's okay. And he goes to this cooler and he takes out a Coke, something, and he looks and he points, he goes, "You sure you don't want a soda?" I said, "Oh, you mean a pop?" Yeah.
Yeah,
And
pop. I remember saying pop.
yeah. So he gave me one and we start talking and I'm supposed to have 10 minutes. After 20 minutes, there's all these people out in the hallway, like the record people and the head honchos and the groupies and everything. And they're all like making a noise in the hallway. He says to me, "Ashley, hold on a second." He goes to the door and he goes, "People, people, people, please quiet down a little bit. I'll be with you shortly. I'm just in." He literally said, "I'm in with a friend. I'll be out shortly." He gave me 30 minutes, not 10 minutes. And not only that,
Wow.
he invited me to a private party. And before the article actually came out in this weekly national magazine, he had his people from New York call me to say, "Bruce just wanted to let you know he's on tour. But he wanted to let you know how much he enjoyed meeting you." Can you believe it?
Amazing.
So,
Love these
so
moments
yeah,
of humanity.
yeah, that's what it is. Trying to find
Yeah.
humanity. I've had
Mm.
publicists, you know how it is. You interview someone that's publicist is hanging around. I've had publicists go, "Okay, you guys are fine. I'm leaving." because you know, because
Yeah.
they're going, "Well, Ashley's not going to do anything," or the artist goes, "Well, I'm fine. You don't have to be here," type thing.
I
Humanity.
love that.
You're right
That's
about
such
it.
a testament
Actually, I
to
had
your
somebody.
character.
Somebody said, a dear friend of mine, he's got an MBA, and I really can't do it because I'm involved in all these other things. But a few years ago, she said, "Ashley, you should do TED Talks about the art of the interview with all the people you've interviewed and what things you have picked up, tips, and dealing with people, not actually having people call you a little piggy, so to speak." I don't think I would go interview people like that. Go, no, no, I don't think so. Although if I had to, I think I would still even get to that person. I would find a way to get to that person.
Yes.
Anyway, whose
Yes.
name shall
Connection
go
is
not mentioned.
everything. So,
Gotcha.
okay. So, over the years, like we've seen media landscape changing from magazines folding to newsroom downsizing, digital
Yep.
disruption everywhere.
Yep.
And I'd love
Yep.
for you to share with our audience because a lot of us in midlife find that what used to work for us professionally no longer exists or works.
Yep.
So, how
Yep.
have you kept yourself relevant and employed through it all?
Last year, I actually think I might have got published in the last hard copy magazine I'll be published. Well, maybe not, but it's this swanky magazine. I showed it to you. It's called Flaunt. It's about
Yes,
this
yes.
thick. You know, it's like a fashion culture. It's actually a pretty good magazine. It's been around for 25 years, and I did a cover story on a NFL superstar. But anyway, it's changed because I no longer write for magazines. I write for online or whatever. But what
Mhm.
happened, so like what you were saying, we're having to adapt and whatever. So
Yeah.
I got by sheer luck, I met a guy named Jeff. Jeff who belongs to a group called the Hollywood Writers Group. This is where I met Havila Malone and found out
Oh,
about
yeah,
vertical
Kamala.
filmmaking. Havila, yeah. Jason Ferran, English fellow. We met on the street. We're talking about soccer, and he goes, "Hey, you should come to our group at the Asta." It's I should. He says, "Don't mention it. It's a private group at a swanky hotel. It's a private members group, actually." Anyway, so I'm there, the first one, maybe the first one. Yeah. And there was a DP slash cinematographer slash director named Michael Goy, veteran, has had like a handful of Emmy nominations for American Horror Story. So he's on stage with a couple of other people talking about his experience, and this was brilliant. This was absolutely brilliant, and it actually inspired me and gave me a shift into what I'm attempting to do now. Uh, he said when he was a kid, he was like growing up in, I don't know, the Midwest, somewhere, maybe Cleveland or something. And he said, I there was this company that was Hispanic, and maybe it was audio visual. I forget the type of company. And he goes, you know, they need to have advertisements, like, local TV advertisements. He said I was a teenager. He was like 13, 14 years old. He had a camera. He said, I went to them, said, "Hey, I can do a little video for you guys. Maybe you could use it." And he started doing filming these commercials for this company, that Hispanic company, and he didn't speak Spanish, and they loved it. And he said, the moral of the story is, and so this is a traditional Hollywood DP slash director, Michael Goy, saying that old Hollywood ain't never coming back. You've got to think outside
Yeah.
the box.
So what are
Think
we gonna do now?
outside the box. Well, that's when he admitted that he was writing a vertical script. And I have now written three, four pitch decks and three, almost finished my third vertical script, to put in my quiver, so that when I'm ready to go, because I've got various other things I'm working on, including an animated series that I'm now working on right now. Um, um, he said, "Think outside the box." And I went, you know what? I've been heard about vertical filmmaking for a few years now. I'm going to um, get into it. So my tip on this is that people will always need content. They will always need
Yes.
content. You know, um, you got to find
The
people who are willing to
platforms
pay.
might change, the
Yep,
aspect
yep,
ratio might change,
yep,
the
yep,
budgets might change. Yeah.
yeah. Now, just because you and I spoke about this previously, Huffington
Yeah.
Post killed a lot of the former the magazines and things that I used to write for, because they came up and Ariana Huffington said, "Well, we're going to put a magazine online, and we're not going to pay anybody." Uh, and unfortunately, that is how they. Um, the, so I did this cover story, and when I did a cover story for an NFL superstar for Playboy, not a cover story, but his name was on it. They paid me like, $2,500 for the one interview. You know what this magazine Flaunt paid me? I'm sorry, guys. I got to tell you, just in case they ever hear this, they paid me a tenth of that. And I went, holy geez, this is what online Ariana Huffington has caused, that they can get away with paying people, that sort of journalists,
That
professional
fraction.
writers, journalists,
Yeah.
right. Of course, I thanked them and I go, well, okay, I got a cover in a magazine, so great. But I ain't calling them back because I can make more
Right.
money on even private little gigs and private writing gigs that I do.
Yes.
So while I think Ariana Huffington and that genre of not paying journalists killed a goose, it actually also opened up opportunities, because, of course, all the vertical films are actually online, and there are other things that are available. For instance, we spoke about this. If you're a digital creator, OnlyFans. I mean, a whole business. I was speaking to a lady about this the other day, just on the street, walking her dog. and she said I was on it and I'm not on it now, but um, it has opened doors. I think I don't know a lot about it, but it has opened doors for a lot of women to provide
Yeah,
content
it has.
online. So yes, so she might have killed one goose, Ariana, but she created other golden gooses.
Golden
There you
geese.
go.
Yes, she
Golden
has.
geese, exactly.
Well, speaking of, golden geese or an elephant in the room, you've actually written about being offered money to teach an AI platform to write like
Yeah,
you, which
yeah.
essentially makes you replaceable. And I'm curious how that moment hit you. We're in an age of AI, so how did that hit you? What does it say about where the industry's headed, and what are your thoughts about it?
It's about 5, 6 years ago. It was through LinkedIn, and
Okay.
they actually said we'll pay you $50 an hour to teach the platform to do this. Uh, it took it. I didn't think much about it. I just said I don't think so. And then as it's happened, I'm like most people, I'm of two minds about it. Part of it pisses me off, um, but part of it is also understanding that it's inexorable and it's going to happen. But I don't know, Lisa,
Yeah.
if you can. I've seen, um, I I've seen letters, I've heard music, I've seen texts that have been sent to me, and like somebody pitched something. They said, "Oh, you had this other book out, and I'd like you to pitch you again, or maybe trying to get it back out there." Blah blah blah. And I said, "Listen, Kristen, um, send me a letter that isn't written by Chat GPT, and then maybe we can talk."
Yes.
I could tell.
I
This
get a
other
lot of
guy,
pitches for this podcast, and I can tell AI wrote them.
right? The another one, a guy who I think has won some awards, a musician, older musician, won some awards. He sent me a couple of weeks ago and pissed me off. Sent me a piece of music. Actually, I'm sure it was a form thing. Sent it to all his mailing list. I'd love your honest opinion on this piece of music, this song. And he said that he had actually written the music and composed it, but they used a singer, and I almost hit the roof because I could tell it was an AI singer, and I just felt
Yeah.
I felt dirty that because I scroll through my phone and I see incredible singers who are starting out, or I've heard of
And
actors.
deserve a chance and deserve to be
Exactly.
discovered. Yeah.
Exactly. And I said to him right on his, I did it personally, and also I did openly, publicly on YouTube. I don't know if he took my comment down. I wasn't mean. I just told him, since you asked me, I said, there are singers out there, just like I've heard there are actors. I met a girl at that Julie Bruns who had that. She did a pirate movie, a vertical pirate movie. And I said, "How did she told me the budget?" I said, "How did you manage?" She goes, "Well, we got people to defer. People did us favors." So I said this to this guy, Misha. Hey, there are great singers out there. You can use them. They might defer payment. They might, if something happens, pay them at the back end or something like that. Just use them. And I said, I cannot support something. I have access to the platforms, online platforms, where I get a lot of readership, and I have access to promoting and getting him onto Google News. And I said I'm not going to, because
Yeah.
yes, it could be inexorable, yes, but things piss me off. At this writers group, there was a teacher or a professor who said my students are writing scripts in using Chat GPT, and I felt like standing up and saying, why do you allow it? Is it just because you need the money? Could be. He needs the money. He needs the job. He has a family. He has a mortgage, whatever. Why do you allow it? It just really pissed me off that maybe I'm wrong to feel that, but I'm going,
Well, did
we're
he
just giving,
answer
we're,
why
we're
he
giving
allows
into
it?
it. He didn't. And
Yeah.
if I'd been one on one, I would have got more answers
Sure,
out of it.
sure.
It wasn't a one on one thing. So
Yeah.
it's inexorable. I did something. I played something. I'm working on this animation series, and I said, Oh, let me. I wasn't even chat. I don't even pay for Chat GPT. I just did Gemini or something like that, and I asked them, "Hey, can you come up with a rap song, a rap chant for these animated characters they play on a soccer team, and they're called the United." And it came up with a rap chant, and I went, "Okay, I can use this." You know, I'm going, "Okay, nobody's going to record this or whatever, but I can use this." And it would have taken me hours to come up with 6 lines that rhymed and whatever. I mean, I could have done it because I've done it, you know. So
Yeah.
yes, but also I don't know what we can do, Lisa. It could be, people have said it could be an extinction event. It could
Yes,
well be.
people
They
have
talked
said
about that
that.
in Terminator. Yeah,
Yeah,
in Terminator, which
yeah,
is a sci-fi fictional thing. But
but
well,
it's
what if they
real.
don't need us? Listen, the dinosaurs were around for 100 million years. I'm sure they didn't think, "Oh yeah, we're gonna die off next week." No, they didn't.
Right?
They didn't. They didn't. Yeah, they didn't think that. You know. So anyway, that's my take. It's a two-tone. It's good, but it's also really
Yeah.
not
I
good.
hear you. I'm on both sides too. Okay, well, speaking of something that was not written with AI, Harlem to
Yeah.
Hollywood, my real to
Yeah.
real life. Now that's
To
the story of
yeah.
French Connection detective turned Hollywood producer Sonny Grosso?
Grosso. Yeah, I call him Grosso,
Okay.
but some people say Grosso.
And so you kind of mentioned that you struck up a friendship with Sonny, but I'd love to hear how that happened and what made you realize that his story needed to become a book because it absolutely did.
Yeah, and by the way, Adam Sandler's company read it and were goo goo gaga over it. But as in Hollywood, they're going, "We don't do TV. You've got to go.
Mm,
Can you go find a showrunner that's really interested in it?" And I went, "Well, okay, yeah, but it's going to take me a little bit longer because I have other things." Anyway, Sonny, I knew him in Toronto and New York through a legendary music pal of mine, and get this. Do you remember that movie Wall Street with Michael Douglas?
yeah, love that
Um,
movie.
and he, yeah, yeah, and he played, I forget his character's name. He played that Wall Street shark, and
Gordon
Bud
Gecko.
Fox, Charlie Sheen, Gordon Gecko. Um, he Bud Fox says, I'm gonna go meet the big guy," and I when I first met Sonny Grosso, this is the French Connection cop. His story got turned into a 5-time Oscar movie. He was working on a TV series in Canada that won awards. He was getting better ratings in some markets because they were on CBS in the US. They were getting it was on CBS late night, and they weren't all talk shows. And CBS wanted an alternative to talk shows, and it came on, I believe, at 11:30. And it was outperforming Johnny Carson in some big markets because it was different. It was alternate
Yeah,
programming. Okay. So Sonny was a big guy, like Gordon Gecko, big guy. And, I sold him a script, but, Sonny was, I was, it was a slow burn. But then I started going visiting because I was doing work in New York, visiting in his office in New York. And his lady friend really liked me and I liked her. And, um, this is how it happened. We would go for dinner because I would hang out and Sonny didn't have a big thing. He says, "Yeah, come, we're just going to go to the pizza place. Or we're just going to go to the restaurant around the corner type thing. And I'd listen to his stories. Like, not just the business stories, but just being around wise guys, his stories about going
yeah,
into the social clubs, you know, his stories about his father's funeral, and the neighborhood wise guy with his coat over his shoulders comes into the funeral at the church and stuff. And I'm going, "Hey, Sonny, can I just record these stories?" I just asked him. And he said, "No one's ever asked me that before." So
shocked.
I started it. I know, because he would tell stories to everybody in Toronto, in New York, in
Yeah, sounds like a
Puglias, in
natural
Italy, in
storyteller.
the best, the best storyteller, because you just go. I can't believe this. It's ridiculous. I can't believe this. The gun that Al Pacino used in The Godfather was Sonny's second weapon. And this director, Brett Ratner, comes up to Sonny in Rayo's and pulls out his checkbook when they had checkbooks and said, "I'll give you $75,000 for that gun right now." And Sonny just blew him off. Just blew him off. So stories, just ridiculous stories. So it took.
Wow.
Now the thing is, I think he he had approved every chapter that's in there in the book, but I think he was so paranoid because there were like death threats against him,
Sure.
and people came after him, that he didn't even let people know that he had a family. I didn't have his phone number. I'd have to call his lady to get a hold of him, and then one day he just called me, and then I had his phone number. So
Okay.
he was very reticent about about telling his story publicly. Type he could talk about it, but to actually put it out there.
Sure.
So I
That makes
actually think he
sense.
waited. Yeah, I think he waited till he died before because he passed away. He'd approved everything, and then it took a couple of years with the lawyers and stuff like that to actually get the book published. And I've got enough material to do a sequel to it. But my idea was to try and turn it into a little mini series like The Offer. And it's a possibility, but it's hard these days. These things are expensive. You know, just to do a pilot, and I've written a pilot, it could cost $8 million or something just to shoot a pilot. So,
Yeah.
these things are
Unless you
challenging.
use
Let's just say,
AI.
even, yeah, I guess. I guess. Anyway, so that Sonny Grosso became a friend, and I'll tell you what. One little thing. Sometimes I would go to his office. I'd be in New York because I had a friend out in Long Island, and then I'd come and stay in the city. And anyway, his lady friend would be looking. Her mother was not doing well, so I'd be left at the office. Famous Sonny, and with the office, and he'd say, "Hey, let's you and I go to we'll go to the bar over here, and we'll watch the Yankee game." And I remember, his health was starting to fail, and I would carry one of his little briefcase thing, whatever. And we crossed the street. He was right in Midtown, 47th and Third, and I remember he put his hand on my shoulder, Lisa, as we crossed the street, and it was such a sign of respect, love,
Yeah.
and that he said, I honor this gentleman here, that I will put my hand on his shoulder, and it was just a
That's
physical thing that
beautiful.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we go in and that sort of thing. Anyway, that's where the Sonny Grosso thing came from. um
That's amazing.
I
Thank
one
you for
I
sharing that.
once Yeah, he's got stories about Frank Sinatra that are just unbelievable. Like what? I'm telling you, the guy had at Happy Madison, which is Sandler's. He had the right instinct. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of we got to you got to get the right people involved. They don't do TV. You got
Yes.
a showrunner who happens to not be working right now and goes,
Right.
"I like it."
It has enough power and influence.
Exactly. No, that's
Yeah.
really where
Okay.
it's at. Like, yeah. Go ahead.
So y you've shared so many. I mean, your name dropping is impressive. I'm curious if there's anyone you haven't mentioned already that you've interviewed or you've interacted with that has really stuck with you, like somebody who really stands out?
Two of them. Well, first of all, Springsteen, of course, because I told you that story. But two others.
Yeah.
One of them is Anthony Hopkins, and the other one, who's actually from the same neck of the woods as I am, but going back quite a while, because I've been here in North America longer than I lived in Britain. Um, Anthony Hopkins, who gave a master class in just in intelligence, brilliance, aesthetics, whatever. There was a group of 8 journalists around a round table, and he was there. He was shooting, doing Westworld, and that's a story. It's just unbelievable. Yeah, I made sure that I sat right next to him, and somebody said to him, and I had my notes in front of me. Somebody said, "So how do you memorize the lines, whatever?" And he picked up my notes. He took my notes from me. And I go, "Oh, great, all my private notes." And he's looking at it and he goes, "I consume the words." And everyone goes, wow, that's kind of cool. He consumes the
That's
words, and then
amazing.
and then he's reading it, and he goes, "My character says he's is like God," and I went, "Yeah, you said that, but in the in the screener." Um, and he goes, "Oh, speaking of which," and then he went like this. He pointed up to the ceiling, and I got what he meant. And I said, "Is this Dean Chapel?" And he went, "Oh, you have been listening. You have been taking notes and listening." And then he goes on to this whole thing about Michelangelo and that painting. And he goes, "If you look at the painting, God is sitting. If you look at it, call it up on your phones right now. God is sitting in a cloud, ostensibly, but it's actually the cerebell. It's actually the brain. He's sitting in a brain, a crowd that looks like a brain." And then
Wow.
he goes on to, and God is a creation of man from man's own brain or whatever. And he goes on to this whole thing. And we're all going, holy jeez, this guy's on some other level. You know what I mean? But he didn't answer any of the questions of Westworld. He wasn't interested in talking about Westworld. He was just interested in having philosophical conversation. He's a painter, he's a musician, and he's a philosopher. So that was stood out. The
Whew.
other one was Leonard Cohen. I had to do for
Oh,
a magazine in Canada, and we went to this swanky hotel, um, and he was getting honored that evening, and he says, let's go have some coffee," and we go. It was afternoon in the afternoon. This nice hotel, and he says, "Well, let's have some cognac. It's on the company." So I'm drinking coffee and cognac with Leonard Cohen, and we basically had two subjects that went on for like a couple of hours. The two subjects were, any guesses?
no, I
Okay.
wanna know.
Well, one of them was writing because he's a writer, and I'm a
Yeah,
writer.
a
So
brilliant
we
writer.
exchanged we exchanged stories on writing, and then the other subject was women, and we exchanged stories on women we know, and
Wow.
why did you love that girl, and Suzanne
Oof.
takes you down, why did you love that girl, what did this, and then he'd go, "Oh, another cognac, it's on the company." And we'd be sipping cognac and drinking coffee for like 2 hours talking about writing and women. It was just like me. I had a best friend, Rob, who we would meet on Saturday afternoons, drinks to sip cognac and drink coffee, espresso, and talk, philosophize, and that's what I did with
Yeah.
Leonard Cohen. We philosophized, and I did got enough material to write a story, blah 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 blah. One of a one-off conversation with Leonard Cohen in a piano bar in Toronto.
That's incredible. Oh my god. Thank you for sharing those examples. So
You're welcome.
potent.
Yeah, well,
Um,
thank you.
well, let's segue. We've talked a lot about others, and we've
Yeah.
talked about you as well. But I'm curious from your perspective, what was your biggest surprise about arriving in midlife? Was there a moment you looked around and were like, "How did I get here?" Or like, yeah, I'd love to just hear a little more from your perspective.
Well, I look to people who are even older, who are more experienced in midlife,
Yeah,
like Leonard Cohen, or one of my neighbors. She's English, Daphne, and she's 95, and she drives and looks after her daughter and the grandchildren, and
oh my
she is
god,
just a force of bloody nature. She has issues, health issues, and whatever. Um,
sure.
and I go, you know what, Ashley, you got to keep going because this lady is doing it. This animation producer I'm working with, he's 80. He did this thing called, he's a BAFTA and Emmy award winning animation producer, and he went to the London School of Economics, and he's a friend, and I'm working on his show, and he's in his early 80s, and the guy keeps going. He keeps sending me notes going, "Oh, Ashley, we can't talk. I can't read that right now, or my wife's going to divorce me." Um, and so having reached the age where Margaret Atwood, she actually did this. It might have been a 60 Minutes thing. Margaret Atwood, she who I met when I was in journalism school.
Incredible
Um,
author.
and
Wow.
incredible author, and The Handmaid's Tale is all based on her books. Um,
Oof.
she was doing an interview, and maybe she was doing a tour of one of her homes or something, and the interviewer said they were walking around. He said, "So, how many books do you have?" And she went, "I don't know, 50 something, you know." Okay, and then another question is, "So how many cities or countries have you been to?" "I don't know, 50 something, you know." And then he goes, "So how old are you?" And she goes, "Well, 50 something." And I figure now that I've met people who are like 80 and 90, I'm going like, yeah, 50 something is fine. You just gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta keep, you gotta keep going.
Yes.
I treat my doctors well. I bring them little gifts. I bring them, one doctor says, don't bring wine. People bring me wine and scotch all the time. I said, okay, I'm going to bring you really, really, because your office manager is lovely. I'm going to bring chocolates. And he goes, great, because I love chocolates. So I treat my doctors. This is a bit of advice. Really, my mother taught me this. She
Smart.
would always at Christmas time say, Ashley, my son, you know, here's a list of people you have to go take this bottle of wine to this dentist or this doctor or this
Yeah.
scarf or something. So I do that to the people who look after me now that we are into midlife, 50 something. I try
Smart.
and treat them because, no, I mean that. I literally do. I don't forget these things. Um, or buy flowers for the office because, hey, your office is really boring. Do you mind if I bring you some flowers? To perk it up, type thing. I do it. I'm going tomorrow. I'm going to do something tomorrow. My surgeon. Um, uh, so I treat them so that they will keep me well, Lisa, so that I
Yes.
can. So how did I get you? I don't know. I'm here and I want to continue on. So I treat them well and take inspiration from people who more experienced than I am.
Yes.
Does that
I
make
love that
make
so
sense?
much. It makes total sense. So, some people reinvent themselves completely in midlife and others double
Yep,
down on what they already know.
yep.
So I'm curious, and this will be final question because we are running out of time. Like, where do you stand on this? Like, I love this treating your doctors well. I love this like really owning this era, right? And taking care of ourselves. But like, where do you stand on like trying new versus staying with what works?
Well, like I said, I learned how to type on a manual typewriter. My phone now is more powerful than the first Mac. It was a Mac 512K. The first Macintosh came out. Everyone went bonkers when that computer came out. Everyone went, "Wow, my goodness!" And you got to flip the discs in and take the Mac Write disc or the Mac Paint
Yes.
disc. You know. So our phones are more powerful, 100 times more powerful than that Mac 12. Okay, so I went from manual typewriter to the 512K to the phone to the computer. So I will always be writing until my ink
Yes.
runs dry. I'll be going
Same.
when they come to call me. I'll go, hey, I got to finish this last paragraph. But my point being that
Yes.
vertical filmmaking and this whole online adventure um, is giving me some impetus. People still need content, so can we tailor? I know I saw you do a pitch at the vertical drama market. We have to tailor the content that we write to the platforms that are available. People still need content, even if it's AI. They still need content that'll stand out from. This is so dry with no soul, which is what you can see it in the writing and the music.
Yes.
There is no
Yes.
soul in it. If they discover how to put soul into it, we are definitely done. We are just
For
done.
sure.
But they don't do it now. So there'll always be a
Yeah.
need. So I quite frankly, it ain't. Listen, Lisa, it's not easy. It's challenging. Um, so
But what else are we gonna do?
what else are we gonna
I
do?
will I, like you, will be writing on the day I die. That is a
Yeah,
promise, that
yeah.
is a guarantee, that is who I am, it's what I do, it's my compulsion, it's my joy, it's my happy place, and it doesn't matter the medium. I have written traditional published books, I've written I mean, it just doesn't matter. Like, we're storytellers, and we will be every day, at at least for the rest of this lifetime. What
One
a
other tip.
pleasure.
One other tip.
Yes.
Follow the golden rule. treat other people the way you want to be treated. And
Mm.
sometimes it's not easy because people are there are mean people out there,
They can be
who
jerks,
are
yes.
lack they can be jerks or dicks, as I might say. But um, follow the goal. I try that. I think that's important, and hopefully by following that, you can the karma of the world will continue to pay you and me back.
Well said, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us in Midlife today.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it myself.